I want to talk about an emergency fund that is actually for an emergency. We just went through one heck of a storm with Hurricane Helene. And I am actually back at my home in Georgia where I had to deal with an emergency. And I wanted to talk with you guys about this so that you can be prepared in case of an emergency. I want to talk about this because emergency funds are not just for if you are out of work and you need to pull off of that money to sustain yourself. Emergency funds are for actual emergencies, right? And so I am actually dealing with just a small one, right? I am not, in no way was my family or me or my property really ever in danger. But I'm watching people around me that have been very hard hit. And so I don't want you to end up in a situation like that. I want you to be prepared. And so we want to talk about why you actually want to keep emergency funds on hand. This is the reality of natural disasters like Hurricane Helene. When storms hit different regions, they don't just shake those regions. They shake lives, they shake livelihoods, and our finances. And while we can't control what happens with Mother Nature, what we can control is how prepared we are. So let's break this down. Today, what I want to share with you is why it is important to have an emergency fund, right? It's not just a smart move, it is a life-saving one, all right? Especially for us Black women who often have to navigate through extra layers of complexity, right? We have to deal with different stuff with our finances. So listen, we just had to deal with taking water on into our basement. Now, the floor is actually it's a cement floor, and then there's vinyl tile on top of that. But then what we have are area rugs in parts of the area where we have a couple of offices downstairs. Luckily, it was confined to only one side of the basement. The other side has a pool table and some other stuff, but none of that was affected, right? The biggest deal was getting those area rugs out, which were pretty big rugs. And once they get waterlogged, they're heavy. All right, so the first thing is you got to figure out how to get the water out, right? So I go to Home Depot, and every piece of equipment that you could rent to do that is gone. They're out of it, right? Too many people have come there where they're actually needing that equipment to pump water out. We didn't need to pump water out, all right? But I couldn't rent any equipment. I went over to the aisle where they had shop vacs. I was just going to try and shop vac it out. Well, there were some shop vacs available. We have one, but I needed a special filter. You need a filter for water, not the regular filter that comes with a normal shop vac. So are there any? Absolutely not. So I said, well, let me buy a new one. If I buy a new one, maybe it will work better than the filter that I have on the current one that we have right now. I take that home. And by the way, I couldn't buy another water filter for the new one because there were no water filters for any of them. So I take it back home, and I go back and I'm trying to suck the water out of the carpet. It's pulling the water in, and then because it's the wrong filter, it's shooting it right back out. So I had to basically take the thing back because it's not doing what I needed it to do. If I had standing water, you could literally suck it up that way. I imagine some of it would suck up because I've seen people do it with a bucket. But then again, I don't know if they had the proper filter on it or not. Either way it goes, what I purchased was not going to help me, all right? So when I went to Home Depot, I see all of these people in there buying shop vacs. And they're buying the last of the filters, and they're buying squeegees, and they're buying sandbags. They're buying all these different things to deal with the storm. They're buying water pumps, right? Because now theirs have failed. These are the types of reasons that you need to stay ready for whatever emergency comes your way. And if folks are not dealing with trying to get water out of their basement, they've got to figure out how to get their cars to safety, right? Not only is it their basement. Luckily I've got a basement, but some people, their homes are maybe ranch style, and they're ground level where water could possibly come in. By the way, my water didn't come in from any other way but my patio door that was not completely closed. So it wasn't a real flood. It was just that the door was slightly open enough for the water that pooled outside to come in. right? So you see people out there buying caulk and they're buying all these different things. If you don't have the funds to go and purchase all of those things to get yourself out of an emergency, you're screwed. I just so happen to have enough money to buy the things I need. And if it was too bad, I would have had to bring in people to help me do this. So that's another expense that you would be paying for. So here are the reasons. Reason number one, y'all, natural disasters do not wait for you to get ready. They don't care if it's in the middle of the night or if it's at the start of your work week. You have to be ready at all times. An emergency fund can mean the difference between being able to evacuate safely or being stuck without any options. And let's be honest, having that cash available to book a hotel, pay for gas, or just stock up on supplies gives you the peace of mind that's just priceless. All right, look at this. The cost of just getting out of town during a hurricane can be over $1,000 easily. Gas, food, hotel stays, these are real expenses that add up. Having an emergency fund means you're not pulling out a credit card or putting yourself in debt during a crisis. And by the way, if you pull out a credit card and you don't have the available balance on it, you'll be putting yourself in greater jeopardy. So these are reasons, again, why you want to either have the cash, make sure you're not putting yourself in so much debt that your credit card can't be some type of an emergency backup for you. You've got to make sure all of these things, your financial house is in order for when things are out of order. All right, reason number two, recovery costs money. Even after the hurricane's gone, the costs don't stop. You have damaged roofs. You could have a flooded basement like we did. Replacing lost items, it can be overwhelming. Without an emergency fund, a lot of people find themselves having to borrow money, sell some of their belongings, or take out a high interest loan. We don't want that. We want to be in control wherever we're able to be. Imagine having the ability to replace things or pay a contractor without worrying where that money is going to come from. Your emergency fund is your safety net. Now let's talk about having an actual plan. It's not just about having the cash. It's about being able to put your hands on where your actual documents are located, okay? It's about knowing where your homeowner's insurance is, okay? It's about being able to get your hands on those documents so that if you need those services, you can put a call into your agent and say, listen, we got trouble over here. I need you to get me an adjuster out here to help my family get back whole. Not only do you want to know where those policies are, you want to make sure they're up to date and not lapsed, okay? You also want to make sure you have access to liquid cash, just in case the banks are down. In Georgia was hard hit. There were trees down, the electricity was down. So if electricity is down, your banks are probably down. You need some cash in your home so that if you need to grab that and go pay for a hotel, go pay for whatever you need to pay for. Any kind of emergency services, food, whatever it is, you need to have access to some cash to be able to take care of those items. Reason number three, avoiding high interest debt. Too often, emergencies end up being financed on credit cards, which can come with a very high interest rate. And for Black women especially, we already face systemic barriers to wealth building. This debt can be crushing and derail our financial goals. When you have an emergency fund, you have choices. You don't have to rely on a credit card or a payday loan just to get through a crisis. Your emergency fund lets you face challenges without adding financial burdens on top of emotional ones. And reason number four is peace of mind during an emergency. Let me tell you, nothing feels better than knowing you can handle life's curveballs. Emergencies like hurricanes can leave you feeling powerless. But when you have your finances in place, you can regain some of that power. You know you can take care of your family, keep a roof over your head, keep the lights on, and deal with whatever comes your way. Now, these times are tough, I understand that, but planning ahead can take care of some of that uncertainty. So remember, an emergency fund isn't just about expecting the worst. It's about being ready for it so you can focus on getting yourself and your loved ones to safety. Okay, so if you're wondering how much of an emergency fund do you need, typically you want to have between 3 to 6 months of your living expenses put aside where you can get to it, right? So that you can sustain yourself for a certain amount of months, right? Now that's generally if you've lost your job or something like that. But again, if you need to pull it for times like these, that's what you need to do. So if 3 to 6 months of your living expenses is not realistic for you, don't feel bad. I just want you to put something aside, even if it's just $500 to get you to your next. $500 can make a world of difference, right? So even if you don't have it right now and you escaped any harm this go round, doesn't mean the next time it won't be you, right? So start putting aside small amounts of money and keep that in an emergency fund, preferably in a high yield savings account. Keep some cash in your home just in case, right? But whatever you do, build yourself an emergency fund. At some point, you're going to need it. Now, if you say, well, D, I'm not in one of these flood zones, I'm not near any storms, there will be something that happens. I'm from Chicago, right? And sometimes we could be snowed in. And by the way, if you get a bunch of snow on your roof could fall in. And when that snow melts, you could flood. So there's things that can happen in absolute every area that we live in, all right? Whatever the things that put your family in jeopardy, those are the things you need to protect yourself against. So put some money aside for that very reason. So if you take anything from what I'm telling you right now, it's that you need an emergency fund, and that's not a luxury. That's a necessity, especially being a Black woman. We have to do everything we can to protect ourselves, to protect our families, to protect our homes, and to make sure that we will be okay through whatever comes our way. To the families and individuals that are dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, my heart goes out to you. Please know that there are communities near and far that are willing and ready to step in and help where they are able. To the families and individuals dealing with and preparing for the impact of Hurricane Milton, again, we will be standing ready to assist, ready to support. Blessings to you all. Be strong and be well.